Good morning.
Hello everyone.
We focused last week on Paul as a character in the Bible that exemplifies the one.
On the Enneagram.
On the Enneagram. On the Enneagram.
The one.
The one. The one and only. As an Enneatype 1 on the Enneagram. And you, at this stage, it's as if you've settled into type 1. You struggled a little bit to find your type.
Yeah, George always says he's been married to a couple of different personalities, a 4, and then I was a 3 for a little while, and now finally it looks like I'm settled on the 1. And I think one of the things that threw me off in terms of not tests, what do you call them? Questionnaires that you fill in, was that I was actually filling them in wrong. I had to actually look at my behavior more than what I was feeling, because behavior can differ completely. You can be so angry and you can put on a smiling face, which is something that the 1 can do. They can be furious with somebody, but they will be civil, and they will maybe do say something sarcastic, but they will keep their pose. So and then when I started doing those questionnaires, looking at my behavior specifically, it time and again came up with the energy of the 1, which is the perfectionist or the reformer, is some of the terms that is used for the 1 energy. So for me now, I feel quite settled in it, because if I look at my childhood, my teenage years, and young adulthood, there's such a lot of things in the 1 that I do resonate with. So I can say I feel at home in the 1. That not meaning that I quite like the 1 very much. They really a pain.
Yes, they are.
Yes. Yeah. It's okay. I can be something else. But yeah, so they really have. They're not just critical of other people, like we said last week. They are very critical and hard on themselves. So, but I see that in my life.
And I think being busy with the Enneagram now for a number of years, or being open so that the Enneagram can be busy with us. Also, this discovery, one tries to avoid it. And often we say, be careful not to work with stereotypes when we look at the types. But still, we fall into the trap of doing that. And what helped you is to discover through experience the layered aspects and the nuances in a type, the wings, the instincts, and all of that, and how that sharpens the image, or it comes stronger through, and you can identify with it, and identify in the sense that you know when you're busy with these aspects, it will lead to growth.
Yes, I think so, definitely. Because there was quite a few things in the 1. The 1s are generally, again, stereotypical, quite extroverted. You know, they have these strong views, and they put it out there. So and for me, I see myself more as an introvert. So that threw me off a little bit. But then we had a look at the wings, and the 1 with a 9 wing is much more of an introvert, and somebody that needs some quiet time on their own, has to pull back a bit. Nature is very important, mood is very important. A softer sort of, they have their things that they want to address, but it's not as forceful as the 1 with the 2 wing.
Yes. Yes.
The one with a 2 wing is very much more proactive and humanitarian and out there to work on their causes that's important to them. So that helped me a lot to see.
And also the artistic side.
Yeah, also comes stronger from the 9 wing.
With the 9 wing, because that was something that has always been a factor for you. Because the stereotype is when somebody is creative, the go-to type is type 4. You must be a 4. The way you dress, the way you express yourself through art or
You're
whatever.
an introvert.
Yes.
Yeah.
So often that it almost leads you astray, but then to discover each one of the types can be artistic.
Of course. Yeah. And I think what's interesting about the 9's creativity specifically is that it's not as autobiographical as the 4's creativity, their art. And for myself, in terms of writing and my art, it's more general. It's not so much autobiographical. So that was also a pointer. I think what was also important was the instincts. That also helped to narrow things down and give me a like you said, I like that image of a sharper focus, a sharper image. Was the instincts, and then I always thought my dominant one was self-preservation. But after my recent training, where we specifically worked with the instincts,
just name the 3 instincts.
So you get the self-preservation, social instinct, and the sexual instinct. And from the work that we were doing, I found that my social instinct is very strong, and that helped me to see why I can get so tired in group settings, or when I have to put myself out there, because I'm constantly reading the energy around me, the mood, so
you're actually oversensitive
Yeah.
to people in a social, not that the social setting drains you as such,
No.
but you're very sensitive to people.
I actually enjoy the group. I enjoy being with the people. I really, but afterwards I feel very drained. And I could never understand that, because if I'm a true introvert, I would actually avoid groups. And I really enjoy it. I enjoy it when people come on retreat. I enjoy my group where I'm busy training. And people in general, I really enjoy people. But I get very drained by them. So that helped me to see that my social instinct might be the dominant one, and then the self-preservation and sexual. So that also, and then of course the main things that you look at, the fear of the gut triad is, or not the fear, the emotion of the gut triad is anger. And I struggled with that in the time that I was a 4, because I don't have the emotion of shame. That is so typical of the heart triad. But anger is definitely there. Resentment is definitely there. So that also really pinpointed it more to the 1, or to the gut triad in any case. And then the fear from young, I did not want to do anything wrong, or be naughty, or I had this rule book in my head. So, and for some reason, I got the idea that in my schoolwork, or in any work for that matter, 100% is good enough. Only 100% for tests, for anything less than that means you don't know all your work, and you did something, you got a question wrong.
And you're not perfect.
You're not perfect. So 100%. That's what I'm aiming for, and that was what I was doing. So, which was very sad, because it was a very, very hard act to follow. It was really difficult. I put a lot of strain on myself, worked extremely hard. I still do, in terms of pushing myself. I think that's the one, can often look like a 3 in terms of how they push themselves. But with a 1, it's
Very
generally
driven.
very driven, but more in terms of a goal, not so much ambition as this perfect picture.
Or this is what should be done, and we better get along doing it.
Yeah, and it should be done in that time frame.
Yeah.
And so those responsibility and priorities, all of those things play a very big part in my thinking.
So in terms of Paul, one of the aspects that you can identify mostly with Paul would say his drive.
I think so, and what he accomplished. You know, you sometimes, and it's not to brag, but you look back on a project that you've pulled off or that you've worked on, and you are actually amazed that you did it. I can see now as I'm getting older, I have to let my standards drop because my body can physically not keep up.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely that. And then in terms of in integration, it's so beautiful to see how he moves away from the rules that he was taught and that he was living, and towards the truth, the real peace and the real perfection. And I think that for the 1 is the challenge, is to get away from this rule book in their heads.
It's almost as if the 1 needs to move away from a rigid approach to a much more fluid approach, playful.
Yeah, grey. You have to embrace the grey.
Yeah.
Because for a 1, generally, there is only white and black, right and wrong. And paradoxes and all of that is very difficult to maneuver. But to embrace the grey for a 1 is to be on the road to integration.
Yeah. And in terms of, as a last question, how did the change in your God image, in what way did that have an impact on you being a 1?
Hugely. For a start, I realized that I was making decisions for most of my life from the image of God as a 1. So God was strict. God knew what was right and wrong. God would, I would need to pay the fines and carry the consequences for things that I did wrong. And it was only much later when my God image changed that I realized that it wasn't God that was giving me sentences or making me pay in any way. I was doing it to myself because I thought that was what God expected of me. So for me, God was absolutely the judge.
And now?
Now, with a God image that of much more of a mother or a loving father, somebody that just wants the best for you and actually also wants you to have some fun and not just be so serious and really allow you to just have some fun. What is that beautiful poem by
Hafiz?
In
the big playground of God, have fun, my dear.
Have fun, my dear, in God's big playground. And I think that is a challenge, and that is what God is now. God provides this wonderful, wonderful world.
So that helps in integration, the change in God image.
Absolutely,
It might be very interesting. For some reason, we haven't looked into that in more detail, but whether, say for instance, you're a 1, I'm a 5, whether our God image corresponds with our type, or whether our God image is from a different type.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
I think my God image was very much formed by my father, who I believe to also have been a one. So I think definitely, and it's often the case that our God image is linked to our fathers, especially in the patriarchal religions. That is how you see God. So it would also be interesting to know what your father is, what his Enneagram type is, and to see if you don't perhaps have a God like that. That would be interesting.
So there's so many things coming into play.
Yeah.
As always, thank you for the feedback. It's so interesting, this to and fro conversation taking place after the recording and after we've put it out there on a Saturday morning. Very interesting. There was a question or a suggestion that we might go through all the types in this way. We'll have a look at it, spread it out through the year and so on. It's very interesting, but thank you for the feedback.
We never get tired of the Enneagram.
No. Keep well.
Keep well, everyone. Have a lovely week.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.